Welcome, everybody. I would like to thank you for joining this webinar and also for your interest in the work of the Basel Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants. So today's webinar, I will present the work that was undertaken by the Basel Convention Small Intersessional Working Group on Persistent Organic Pollutants. It's a very long name for this group. I'll be pleased to walk you through some of the work that has taken place since COP11 in 2013. Now, even if in its name it says small, this group is nothing but small. It's actually made up of 77 members representing 45 countries and several other organizations, which include industry groups, non-governmental groups, environmental groups, and other interest groups. We have quite a large active group, and it's through these collaborations that we've been able to make good progress on our work. Canada has been chair of this group since COP10 in 2011. And I wanted to point out as well that our work is done mainly by electronic means and teleconference calls. And you'll see from the scope of our work that this could be quite a challenge, but one that we're all too happy to undertake. The mandate of the group started in 2011 at COP10, where the Small Intersessional Working Group was mandated to prepare a program of work to assess how the new POPs that were listed under the Stockholm Convention would be addressed by the Basel Convention. From that, a work program was presented to Open-Ended Working Group 8, and work started shortly thereafter. Some of you will recall that at COP11 in last year, in 2013, a first draft of a new guideline, the PFAS guideline, had been issued before COP11, and members were able to provide comments and discuss this first draft guideline as early as last year. But really, since last COP, what happened was key lead countries and organizations had been identified for advancing the various pieces of work under our work program, and they were mandated to update and develop those technical guidelines for the environmentally sound management of waste-containing POPs. And we'll look in a second what those POPs are and which guidelines are being developed. The Small Intersessional Working Group was the one that was mandated to assist the country leads and the other leads in the development of those guidelines, and also to bring this work back to the COP and to the Open-Ended Working Group. Now, when we look at the scope of the mandate that was given to us, there were a number of new POPs that were, we call them new POPs. Some of them may not be newly listed by Stockholm a few years ago, but they're new POPs for the Basel Convention to be developing guidelines upon. You have them listed in the left column. Last year at COP, there was a new one that was added to the original list that we considered in 2011, and that's hexabromocyclododecane, HBCD. And so this was a new one that was added to our work plan. When we look at these POPs, the initial work that we did was to look at them, examine their characteristics, and then make a determination of where they would be best addressed. So in this particular case, we had the first 7 POPs that are to be addressed in an existing technical guideline, which is called the Technical Guidelines on Pesticide POPs. So given that there is an existing guideline, this one will be subject to an update and review. The next 3 POPs, HBCD, OctaBDE, and PentaBDE, it was determined there was no existing guidelines that was adequate to receive these POPs, and new documents would be developed to address these chemicals. The next one, HBB, it was determined that it would be part of the existing PCB technical guidelines. Then the following one, PCB, would be placed under the unintentional POPs technical guideline. And finally, the broader category of PFOS, its salts, and PFOS-F would be the subject of a brand new guideline called PFOS Technical Guidelines. Now, in addition to those specific chemical guidelines, there's another document that existed already that was called the General Technical Guidelines that would also end up being the subject of an update given all the new information that will be developed to address these new chemicals. Now, fortunately for Canada, who is chairing this small intersessional working group and this work program, we're quite happy to have the help of several other countries and organizations. And you have the organization of the work here and who is leading the various pieces. The General Technical Guideline is being led by Canada, PFOS as well by Canada. We're happy to have China leading the work on the PBDEs and also the HBCD technical guidelines. And Japan is updating the PCB technical guideline. The Food and Agriculture Organization under the United Nations, known as the FAO, they are handling the pesticides technical guideline, and then UNEP Chemicals finally is doing the unintentional POPs. Now, since COP11, work has been proceeding in a very steady pace, and several drafts of the revised guidelines and also the new guidelines have been prepared. Small intersessional working group members have been very active in reviewing these drafts, providing their comments to lead countries, and really helping to shape things for good and productive discussions at open-ended working group. Since last year, the Small Intersessional Working Group held 5 conference calls to discuss these drafts and also propose different ways to address specific technical comments and as well how the documents should be streamlined and harmonized. You can imagine with 7 guidelines on the go that having conference calls to discuss all of that work can be challenging, but it also has been a very productive way and a very useful way for lead countries to get information and to get feedback on the work that they're doing in advance of the larger negotiations. Now, importantly, and recently in early March, 6 of the technical guidelines were posted on the Basel Convention website for comments by all parties and others. We did receive quite a few comments. I will talk about them in a minute. It was an invitation to provide comments in accordance with the process that is established under the Basel Convention and in preparation for the open-ended working group meeting that will take place in September 2014. Now, we were fortunate to receive comments on all 6 technical guidelines, and these comments are also posted on the Basel website. You have the address here. It's always interesting to see the nature of those comments, and you're welcome to go and have a look after the webinar. Generally, the comments were very constructive, and we received a lot of suggestions regarding how the various guidelines were harmonized or consistent with one another, whether or not some of the information should be contained in some of the specific guidelines or in the general technical guideline, which acts as a chapeau for all of the other more targeted chemical guidelines. We also received some comments about the need for very targeted, very specific information on waste stream specific issues in some of the various technical guidelines. A lot of good comments as well concerning the characterization of the waste streams that are presented in the various guidelines. Those were very useful comments for the lead countries that are preparing these drafts. Now, in light of those comments, as chair, I proposed a meeting that actually took place in May 2014 that would bring together for the first time face-to-face the lead countries of the guidelines, so China, Japan, FAO, UNEP Chemical, and of course ourselves, and also some selected member of the small intersessional working group who had actively provided written comments to the group during the various consultation phases. We got together. The group was, I think, under 20, between 15 and 20 people. The main purpose of the meeting was to go through all the comments that were received during the March 2014 consultation, and review those comments and provide ideas to the lead countries on how best to address them. In general, the comments and the discussion centered around 4 different subjects. One concerning the harmonization of the guidelines, mainly streamlining some of the text, deciding which document would house some parts of the text in the introduction, some background material, deciding how it should be presented, etc. A lot of work was needed on this particular aspect, considering that we had some guidelines that were being written for the first time and others were just being reviewed. So this was a very important part of this meeting. The second subject for discussion was to discuss how we would be best to address the issue of setting a low POP content value for the various chemicals. The low POP content value is a value that the Stockholm Convention has asked that the Basel Convention set for these chemicals. And this value, the significance of this value is the limit at which waste containing those chemicals would have to be irreversibly transformed or destroyed. So it is a very important piece of work, exercise. It is very important. The value that will be set will be very important for parties and others in their management of these wastes. And so far, lead countries have not advanced values for the new POPs, and other than those that existed prior to this work. And we discussed a particular strategy and what kind of documents or information would be needed to support those discussions. So very productive discussion on that matter. The third subject that we considered were specific technical matters on each of the guidelines. Issues concerning the specific technologies that would be mentioned in the various, that would be appropriate for the various chemicals, and how to present that information, how much depth as well is needed in those documents. And one last important matter under this subject matter is a comment that we received for a few guidelines requesting that advice regarding the environmentally sound management of these wastes be very precise and targeted to specific waste streams. In some of the guidelines, we are now facing a circumstance that perhaps was not faced to the same degree in the past, whereby we have guidelines that involve very broad and varying types of waste streams that could range from agricultural sludge to electronic products to other industrial types of products. So the breadth and different scope of these waste streams requires that much more targeted information be written and provided to the users on how to manage these waste streams. So these comments and suggestions were taken up by the group, and certainly agreed to by the group that we should do additional efforts to make sure that better guidance be included in those guidelines and also addresses these various waste streams. So on this particular matter, a lot of productive discussions were held. The final subject that the group tackled at that meeting was to just review the whole suite of documents and information that would be presented at the 9th meeting of the Open-Ended Working Group in September, and also recommend what would be most effective in terms of presentation of any supporting documents. And of course, on this particular meeting, a detailed record of these discussions will be shared very shortly with the Small Intersessional Working Group. It is clear that it's not the entire group that met in Geneva, only a selected set of members and lead countries. The Small Intersessional Working Group will have an opportunity to review the proposals and suggestions from that meeting, and there's also a call that's planned in a few weeks to review these discussions and suggestions, and also review the revisions of the draft guidelines before they're submitted to the Secretariat for the Open-Ended Working Group. And this will take place in the next couple of weeks. In terms of next steps, the lead countries have still quite a bit of work in front of them before Open-Ended Working Group in September. We are all working on revised draft technical guidelines for Open-Ended Working Group, so the versions that some of you may have seen in March are in the process of being changed and updated. We'll also, we have plans for having calls and entertaining the comments of the Small Intersessional Working Group. The chair, therefore, myself, I will be preparing a report of the work of the Small Intersessional Working Group, and that will be presented at Open-Ended Working Group 9. And we'll be also at that time proposing the way forward on how to address a few issues that are challenging for us in the development of these guidelines. There's some issues pertaining to scope of the guidelines. There's some matters that pertain to low POP content. So in the decision that will be coming at Open-Ended Working Group 9, several proposals will be advanced for the consideration of parties. I'd like to say as well that while the lead countries have not, at this point in time, advanced specific values for low POP content, we will be presenting a document, a brief document, to provide information on the significance of low POP content, what it means in terms of management of waste, what are the various considerations that need to be taken into account in setting those values. And this information will be presented as an information note to bring everyone, I guess, to the same level of understanding that those that have been working a little bit more closely on this issue have gained. And we will be sharing that information document with parties and others at Open-Ended Working Group 9, and hopefully that will also assist guiding work in setting those values for COP12 in 2015. This concludes my presentation. There's additional information on the work of the Small Intersessional Working Group that can be found on the Basel Convention website. We provide the links here today. And as well, we have a dedicated web address here in Canada for those that may have some questions on the work of the Small Intersessional Working Group, and the address is as well presented on this slide. Thank you very much.